Hey everybody, welcome back to the Excelical Real Estate channel. My name is Jeremy Rickard and I am the broker of Excelical Real Estate here in sunny Central Florida. And as always, this channel was designed to help alleviate fear in making decisions in real estate and the buying and the selling of real estate. We want to alleviate fear, and the way we want to go about doing that is educating you, getting you as educated as possible, and I would love to guide you through that process. And today we're going to be talking to both buyers and sellers to some degree, focusing a little bit more on the buyers and alleviating one particular fear. So some people are a little bit nervous about putting a contract on a house because they think they might lose their deposit or lose the money that they put down to hold the home in escrow. A lot of times at about 1% of the purchase price, that can add up to a few $1,000s. So it makes sense why that would make some people nervous. But I want to show you today how you can be protected throughout the process and the different markers that you want to pay attention to so that you don't lose your deposit. And on the other side, I want to talk to sellers about how to make sure that you're structuring this contract so that it's not leaving you open to losing money either at the end of the day. So let's start out first with buyers. We're going to talk about something called a contingency clause. And what is really a contingency clause? Contingency clauses in contracts, really, they make provisions. And what we're going to talk about first is the provision for the buyer. So let's assume for a second that you, the buyer, write a contract and you put an escrow deposit down. That deposit basically holds the house, opens up escrow until you close it at the end. It's basically just a good faith deposit. Like I said, sometimes it's about 1% of the purchase price is kind of standard in this area. So we're going to talk about something called the effective date first. The effective date is on day one. That's when everybody signs the contract and it's been communicated to all the parties. And so we call it the effective date. That's very important because it's when all of the other dates are going to be based on that date, okay? So when we talking in a contract about 10 days or 15 days or 20 days, it's all based on this effective date. So we establish that first, and that's day one. Well, between day one and somewhere between day one and day 15, our Florida contracts default to 15 days, but generally people are getting inspections done at around the 10-day marker. Before that is usually, it's pretty common to have that happen. There is a contingency clause in there for the buyer. And what it says is that if during that inspection time period, for really any reason, the buyer deems the property to be unacceptable, they've inspected the property and they don't like the results of the inspection, they have the right then to back out. There's a provision allowing them to back out of the contract. They receive their escrow money deposit back as long as they communicate within the time period they've agreed on contract in writing to the seller. They get their money back, everybody washes their hands, and we walk away, we try to find another house. There's your first contingency. The second contingency is you need to make sure that your loan gets done, so loan approval. Now, here's where I want to step aside just 1 second and talk to sellers. In our Florida contracts, it defaults to 30 days of loan approval time period for the buyers. Now, if you don't pay attention to that line and your closing is in 30 days of your effective date, you in essence have given the buyer the entire time to get their loan approved, all the way up until the day of closing. Now, why would that be a problem? What if at the day 29 something goes way wrong, and it has happened, somebody loses their job, they re-verify income, something like that, they lose all that. You've already moved out of the home, you've got your moving trucks ready, you're ready to go off and go to your next home, and the buyer comes and says, I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, Ms. Seller, I cannot close this loan. Well, according to the contract, that's a contingency that's in there, and if you gave them the full 30 days, they get their escrow money deposit back, and you're out. You're out. You really have nothing to show for all that time that you took your property off the market. What I would suggest for sellers is try to get the loan approval sometime closer to day 20. That should give the buyer plenty enough time to get a loan approved, and all we're really waiting on is maybe a few conditions. One of those conditions potentially might be an appraisal. Now, as long as your property is put on the market at the appropriate price, and you need a good agent that understands the market to do that, you should not have very many issues with appraisals. But they do happen from time to time, even with the very best of us. And so what if the appraisal comes back and the appraisal says this property is not worth what the contract says it should be worth, then that is another provision for the buyer to say, I'm unwilling to pay the property price that's on the contract. Now, you can then negotiate again and bring the price down to what the appraised value is, and then everybody's happy and we move on. And that happens quite often. But if the seller says, nope, I want the price on the contract, that does give the buyer the right to back out, and they get their escrow deposit back. Again, wash hands, and you move on. So there are a couple of contingencies. I just don't want buyers to feel so fearful about putting a contract on the property because they think they're just going to lose out, they're potentially going to lose their money, even if they decide to kind of change their mind. There are, even in the inspection time period, if you decided to just change your mind, it does say in the contract, if you just deem it to be unacceptable, then you can, in writing, notify the seller and get your escrow deposit back. So again, I hope that helped both the buyers and the sellers to know and to take away a little bit of that fear. But again, for you sellers, it is pretty crucial that you don't wait till the very end of your contract in order to have that buyer's loan approval. So there is a certain way of going about it for sellers. There's a certain way of going about it for buyers. And again, if you're buying a property, I'd love to be your guide and help you. Make sure that you don't lose your money. And if you are selling a property, I want to help you set up that contract so that you don't lose out in the end and you get the most for your property. So thanks again for tuning in. You can reach us at excellicorrealestate.com. You can email us at sold@excellicorrealestate.com. The links will be down below in the description. And if you have any particular questions or things you would like me to cover in these videos, or maybe you need me to expound a little bit more, I'd be glad to interact with you in the comment section. But feel free to shoot us some emails or some comments about things you would like to hear about and learn more about. Again, we want to take the fear out of the whole process of buying and selling real estate, and we want to make you as educated as possible, and I want to be your guide. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.